And welcome to this special edition of Hannity. Now, tonight for the full hour, Fox News correspondent, our friend Benjamin Hall, he's going to tell us his courageous story of survival, perseverance, and it's going to be in his own words. Now, exactly 1 year ago, in March of 2022, well, Benjamin Hall was on assignment in Kyiv covering the outbreak of the war. Vladimir Putin was attempting to encircle Ukraine's capital city of Kyiv with a series of brutal attacks, and Benjamin Hall was working around the clock to bring all of us real-time information on the ground. Here with more on the ground, he's in Kyiv tonight, the capital of Ukraine. Fox's own Benjamin Hall. Benjamin, what's going on tonight?
Well, Sean, you'd have to look back at today and say that what we've seen is just a continuation, if not an escalation, of what we've seen over the last week. Increasing number of attacks on civilian areas, an inability to get humanitarian aid into these surrounded cities, and an inability for people to get out of them.
Then just a few days later, on March the 14th, Hall was on a fact-finding mission on the outskirts of Ukraine with two other journalists, Pierre and Sasha, when they were viciously attacked by Russian forces. Now, Pierre and Sasha, they were killed, and Hall was left fighting for his life. Here's Jennifer Griffin.
And Brett, a word about our colleagues Pierre, Sasha, and Ben Hall tonight. The loss and pain we feel is enormous, but if ever there were a time that the world needed journalists, reporters risking their lives to tell these stories, to tell the truth, it's now. Without a free press, the autocrats win. We will redouble our efforts to honor these colleagues and all reporters in harm's way tonight.
And Jennifer worked endlessly, tirelessly to help Benjamin and get him to safety. Now, in the hours, days, and weeks and months that followed, Benjamin fought for his life, and he did it with such a positive attitude. I've had the honor of speaking with Ben throughout his recovery, and his courage in the face of what is unthinkable adversity is an inspiration personally to me and to so many others. He has a new book. I urge you to read it, Saved, a War Reporter's Mission to Make It Home. It is out March the 14th, and by the way, it is a must-read. I recently sat down with Benjamin Hall in New York. Here is part one of this interview. Benjamin Hall, Saved, a War Reporter's Mission to Make It Home. My friend, welcome home.
Thank you,
It's great to see you.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
You talk about the term of war correspondent. You've been all over the world. Unfortunately, there has been many conflicts, and you were at the Syrian civil war. You were in Mosul in Iraq. You were in Kabul in Afghanistan during wartime, Mogadishu, and then, of course, Ukraine. You're in war zones. That's your job. It's so hard. I can only imagine the things that you've seen over the years in every place you've been to. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's a job that you can both love and both hate. You hate it because you see some of the horrible things, most horrible things, families losing everything, homes, schools being demolished, children who have nothing. You have to love it too. You have to understand why you're doing it and the importance of it. You've got to understand that those stories, as you tell them to other people, really have influence. And I think we need to know these stories. And so it's been hard, and it's a job that once you start, once you love it, it's very difficult to do anything else, because there are very few other jobs that fill you with such perhaps pride and necessity to do it. So no, I've done all the wars, and I feel when a war breaks out, you've got to be there to cover it, and it's important to our viewers.
And it's dangerous work, and maybe did you ever imagine what happened to you would happen? Did those thoughts go through your head?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I was surrounded by colleagues who were injured, 7 or 8 who died over the years, and so I knew it could happen. I've seen it happen. But did I ever think it would happen to me? No, I'm not sure I did. I knew the risks, I knew it could happen, but I think there has to be a little element inside you that has to believe it won't. And so you make every precaution and take every precaution you can before you go in there. And you're aware of the risks, but you can't let it cloud your judgment. You can't let it distract you when you're working, because if that clouds your mind, you won't do your job as well. So you think about it beforehand, but when you go in, you focus on the job and the work and the people you're talking to, and you don't let any fear fill your mind. You
talk about your injuries. Let's talk about that day. And you were with Pierre, your cameraman, who didn't make it out alive, and a journalist was there as well who didn't make it out alive. And let's talk about the moment that changed your life forever, and and what you remember about it. You talk about going black, and then you tell a pretty miraculous story about getting your consciousness back. Let's talk about that moment, that day.
Yeah, I mean, well, firstly, I was saved that day. We were filming in an abandoned village just outside Kyiv. The Russians had almost surrounded the city, and the idea was they would take it in the next few days. We actually, ironically, weren't planning on going up to the front lines. We were filming these areas that had been totally demolished, and we saw schools that had been hit, churches that had been hit, and we filmed this all ourselves. And as we'd finished, we were driving back towards the capital city of Kyiv. Hadn't seen anyone in a long time, and we slowed down at an abandoned checkpoint. And out of nowhere, the first missile came out of nowhere. Lands about 30 feet in front of us. Immediately, Pierre shouts, "Reverse the car, reverse the car." There were 2 Ukrainians driving as well. There were 5 of us in the car. The car got stuck, we couldn't go back, and Pierre shouted, "Get out of the car, everyone get out of the car." And the next second, the second bomb hits, right in front of the left of the car. And that one, I went black. And I was in a dark place. I couldn't feel or see. And I'd taken some shrapnel in the eye, and a matchbox-sized shrapnel in my neck, and I was out dead. And then I saw my daughter out of nowhere into this blackness, right in front of me. Came my daughter Anna, and she said to me, "Daddy, you've got to get out of the car." Real as if she was in front of me. Out of nowhere, she came to me. And I came to, and I opened up my eyes, and my instinct took me towards the car door. And I scrambled, I pulled myself out, and I got out of the car, and the 3rd bomb hit the car itself right after that. Next thing I know, I wake up, it's thrown me away, I'm on fire, my right leg is gone. I roll around, I try to put
And you had lost your foot at that point.
I'd lost the foot, the foot had gone. Ironically, I didn't notice it at the time.
And then your eye is injured, and you're bleeding everywhere.
They took pieces out of my skull out. My left hand, which has been put back together, was all torn up, the thumb hanging off. So I was lying there, and Pierre was still alive at this point. And Pierre immediately said, "Don't move, Russian drones, Russian drones." And so I'm lying there in this barren landscape, trying not to move, trying to think of what we can do, looking at my injuries, realizing how badly injured I am. And I get my cell phone out, and no reception. Can't get hold of anyone. No one knew where we were. We'd been moving around a little bit. And so I actually had my cell phone out, and the first thought I will record what I'm seeing. And I actually stopped, and I took a picture of my leg and some of my injuries. And I immediately thought, well, my children can't see this. If I don't come home, that can't be the last picture that perhaps they see. So I was sitting there, and I deleted them immediately. But we lay there for a while longer, and Pierre again, who was lying about 5 feet away from me or so, just lying there, just said, "The Russians, the Russians." And after a while, a car came past. It was up on this a ridge just by me. I shouted, "A car, a car," and I started trying to wave at it, trying to get its attention. It didn't see me, and Pierre said, "It's the Russians, it's the Russians." And I said, it doesn't matter. I'm so badly injured, I've got to go. And I remember thinking, it doesn't matter about my injuries. I'm going home. I will do whatever it takes right now. I will drag myself home, pull myself. And I started pulling myself along the ground, dragging myself up the hill. And that same car, a little while later, took a wrong turning down the road, turned around, and it came back. And by that point, I was a little bit higher up, and I had my hand full of dirt and stones, and I was waving, and I threw it at the car, and they saw me, and they stopped, ran out, and grabbed hold of me.
They dragged you?
Dragged me. That was the first time I felt real pain. Amazingly, I was so the adrenaline was pumping through me at first, and I could see the injuries, but I wasn't feeling the pain. And as soon as I was dragged along the ground, and the burns and the skin, a lot of that just came off there, and that was the point that I suddenly felt the real pain. And I was thrown into the back of this van.
Worst pain you've ever felt by far in your life?
That day, and then when I was evacuated as well, when there were no pain meds as well, and it sends you to a new place, an awful place, but somewhere that you have to find a way through. And then I was, the last thing I remember, I found an ambulance at a checkpoint, the nearest checkpoint that had people, and I remember getting an injection, and that was the end of that part. And then the next thing I know, I wake up, and I'm in this hospital. And I don't know where I am, and I look around me, and I assume I'm in Russia. All I know is that we were saying Russians, the car was Russian. At this point, I've got bars coming out of my leg, I can't move, I'm very badly injured, but again, I'm thinking, I'm in Russia, how do I get out? I've got to find a way out, I'm going to escape here. And someone came into the room with my State Department press card. I'd been working there, and he was holding it at me, and he was shouting, "Who are you? Who are you?" And the man opposite, this other patient in the bed, was moving, and his sheet started to rise, so I assumed he had a gun pointed at me. So I'm in this spy world, and I think that I'm being held. What can I do? How can I get out? And into the room walked this American, Rich Jadek. I didn't know him at the time. He looked down at me, and he said, "Hey, Ben, you want to get out of here?" I said, "Absolutely, let's go. Whatever it takes, let's go." And I said, "By the way, that guy's Russian and he's got a gun," which of course wasn't the truth at all. But that was the time that I came into the hands of Save Our Allies and the incredible team that came in to get me. And what they did to get me on short notice, after Jen Griffin, our Pentagon reporter, reached out to them, spoke to Sarah Verrado, who set them up. This is the same group who got many people out of Afghanistan when it fell. They're still getting people out of Afghanistan. They put together this team, former soldiers, former intelligence, who came right in, straight away from Poland. They bought 2 battered up old ambulances, and they broke right into Kyiv. As the shells were falling, they came in because they knew another American was stuck in there, and that was me. And they were going to risk their own lives to get one American home. And one of them had a great friend who died in Afghanistan. They'd served all in Afghanistan, and one of them had watched a friend of his, Ben, die. And his friend Ben had daughters. And he said, "I lost my last friend, Ben, who had daughters at home. I'm not going to lose another one. Whatever it takes, we'll go in and get in there." And then I was taken into the hands of this incredible group of people, and they saved my life then and there.
Let me go back a little bit, and I want to talk a little more about your daughter. So everything goes black. There's nothingness in a sense. You have no idea what had happened, and you feel, you see the presence of your daughter right there in front of you.
Yeah.
You mentioned in the book that you believe in God.
Yeah.
Do you believe that that was God sending your daughter to say, "Daddy, wake up"?
Absolutely. My family are angels. They were sent to me. And I know I was saved that day as well. And when I saw her, it was an incredible peace as well. I was blacked out, but it was quiet. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't fearful. She came to me in this blackness and this peace, though, and said, "Daddy, you've got to get out of the car."
Your daughter's name is Honor.
Is Honor. But I think it was all 3 of my daughters. It was Honor, it was Iris, it was Hero. They came together to me that day. But if I had been an inch in any direction, I'd be dead. I was sitting in the middle seat of this little car, or the back row, and the other 4 people died. And if I had been anywhere else, I'd have been blind in both eyes. I would have suffered serious head injuries, and somehow I came out of this. And I came out of this, I think, in an incredible way. I feel I came out of it with my mind intact, my will intact, my optimism intact, my hope intact. And I think that God gave me that, and my family gave me that, and they brought me back. And if I can do just one thing, it's to pass that on to others. Know that if you try hard, you work hard, if you believe in the right things, you can get through absolutely anything. That was my daughters who came to me that day.